What's up, everybody? I'm Alan Seslowsky. Thanks for tuning back into RosterWatch. Many of our fantasy teams are going to need a weekly facelift with fresh talent from the waiver wire. As we start to deplete our fab budgets or we use our waiver priority and move out of the top 3 waiver priority to the bottom 3, we need to find other ways to gain an edge. RosterWatch has been a long-time proponent of picking up players that have a plausible path to be the hot free agent next week. Mining players from the bottom of the ultimate waiver wire cheat sheet is a proven way to gain an edge. On this video here today, we're going to identify a few players that are sneaky $0 bids or that can be picked up after your waiver wire runs and maybe at the top of the waiver wire sheet next week. The first player I want to talk to you about is Andy Isabella, the wide receiver on the Arizona Cardinals, currently only 4% rostered. Andy Isabella largely disappointed in his rookie season last year with only 2 fantasy-relevant games. His big game in 2019 came on a 188-yard catch in which he scored. A quiet finish to the season made Andy Isabella nothing more than a second-year wide receiver dart that we could throw at the end of our draft this year if he even went drafted in your leagues. After a catchless week 1 and a modest 3-target game in week 2, Andy Isabella opened up our eyes in week 3, catching all 4 of his targets for 47 yards but scored 2 touchdowns. What makes Andy Isabella's performance worth a speculative ad are these 2 things. Number 1, despite having game-breaking 4.31 speed, he produced in the short and intermediate areas of the field. This implies he's not a boom or bust player. He was proactively part of the game plan, even with target hog DeAndre Hopkins getting his feast of 12 targets. Number 2, Isabella's second-round draft capital implies that the team wants him to work out. He was picked by the current regime. In contrast, his injured teammate Christian Kirk was a leftover from the previous coaching staff. This week, there are high-profile free agents on the wide receiver side of things like Justin Jefferson, T. Higgins, and Brandon Ayuk, which are all going to garner huge bids. We urge RosterWatch Nation to speculate on Isabella with a $0 bid if you have the roster space. The second player I would like to talk to you about is Greg Ward, the Philadelphia Eagles wide receiver, only 4% rostered. The case for picking up Greg Ward is pretty simple. Looking back to last season, when the Eagles were decimated by injuries, Greg Ward was relied on heavily over the last month of the season. During that final stretch last season, he averaged almost 8 targets a game. In the words of the famous Yogi Berra, it's deja vu all over again. The Eagles' pass catchers have been hit with the injury bug once again. Rookie Jalen Reagor has now been sent to IR, and emerging tight end star Dallas Goedert is going to be out for at least the next 4 to 6 weeks. Greg Ward reminded us why he was fantasy relevant last year with an eye-popping 11 targets in week 3, which he turned into 8 catches, 72 yards, and did get in the end zone. Most of your leagues are going to be fighting over the high-profile rookies, which we just spoke about, and those filler running backs like Carlos Hyde. RosterWatch Nation should consider Ward with a $0 bid. The last player I'd like to talk to you about is Zach Pascal, the wide receiver on the Indianapolis Colts. He, too, is only 4% rostered currently. Chances are that you've had Zach Pascal on your roster at some point over the last few years. During his 3-year NFL career, he has been roster-worthy and productive in short stints, but not a player that's draftable in most years. Pascal has always been a plus red zone threat, even going back to his days at Old Dominion. He's a capable, professional wide receiver. Pascal is about to get the opportunity again in 2020. Pass catchers Paris Campbell and Michael Pittman are out for at least a month, and likely longer in the case of Paris Campbell, and T.Y. Hilton looks like a shell of his former self so far this season. Pascal played over 80% of the snaps in week 2 and over 90% of the snaps in week 3. He's seen a modest 4 targets a game, but that is likely to improve moving forward. They're going to need him. If you're in need of a wide receiver or a strong floor flex play in PPR leagues, putting a $0 bid on Zach Pascal is a sharp pivot off of the high-priced wide receivers going on the waiver wire this week. Okay, RosterWatch Nation, that's it for today. Remember to like and subscribe to get notifications when we go live, and leave us a comment in the video. We will comment back. Until next time, goodbye.